Just so you know, we didn't agree to wear the same outfit. This is just... Steffi, thanks so much for that very kind introduction. I know that you've been trying to have Harald at DLD for several years. So, Harald, we're thrilled to have you here at DLD. It's very exciting. The theme, obviously, of the conference, optimism, courage. Today, obviously, BMW has a mission to reinvent mobility, but the challenges, obviously, for automotive manufacturers are significant, not just in transforming the business, but obviously, we've seen some news from some of your competitors over recent days, which is fairly bracing. We have a turbulent geopolitical climate, many challenges. Are you feeling optimistic? Are you feeling courageous?
I still feel very optimistic. I mean, I was this week in China, and when you're coming back from China again, you feel optimistic. And as a CEO of a company, anyway, need to be optimistic. I've never assumed that I would see so much volatility in the political framework, but I'm still very optimistic. But you need to be courageous. One of my courageous decisions during my career was, for example, I was an engineer who was setting up the plant in Spartanburg together. And that, at that time, was a brand new step for us going forward, having a plant in the United States, in South Carolina. I can tell you, when I was driving at that time to the city, somebody told me, be careful, it's an unsafe area. Today, it's number 5 in the top pensioner list of the US cities.
Right.
And secondly, maybe, and I come back to this one, after this project, somebody asked me to move to HR. And the first question from myself, what do I have done to the company? And then I thought, if I move into HR, this is really courageous because it could be the end of my career. But it didn't happen. So.
Okay.
But if you look, coming seriously back, what is courageous about today's business? Who in the room knows how many electric vehicles BMW will sell in 2023 in Russia? How many plug-in hybrids? How many battery electric vehicles? You have an AI? 10. Not more? There will be a little bit of infrastructure. But who knows if it's 10 or 10,000? And these courageous decisions we are taking today.
Okay.
Yeah, so I need, with my team, also make sure that we know that we have the flexibility. If we need to sell 10 or 10,000 in Russia, it will be possible. Yeah, and the other one is we are in a technology war.
Sure.
And we can come back to this one in a second.
Well, yeah, I think that's an important point, because if we're looking at what the conversations that we're having today here at DLD and we've been having yesterday, obviously we're talking a lot about large technology platforms. We're also talking about startups. Do you think that there's a chance that these kinds of businesses kind of leaving behind these OEMs, that they're more innovative, they're faster, they're more agile? Is there a chance that large automotive companies could become tomorrow's Nokia, tomorrow's Kodak? How do you prevent that from happening?
I mean, first of all, you need to take every one of those companies seriously.
Yeah.
Not every company will survive.
Yeah.
But you need to take everyone very seriously. I mean, what is the good message? The good message, Greg, is first of all, mobility services, mobile automobiles is a future business. Otherwise, they wouldn't to come into that business.
Sure.
Yeah? So everyone believes mobility of the future is something which is useful and can be a positive business. Secondly, if you look into this one, the markets are very much varying. I mean, I'm very often in the United States, in China, in Europe. One of my beloved countries is Brussels as well. But every regulation, for example, if we talk about autonomous driving, is different.
Yeah.
So we as a company, we need to adjust to the Chinese law, to the US law, to comply with the European law. So, and regulation will be different in the future as well.
Yeah.
If it's CO2, if it's emission, if it's autonomous driving. So the challenge for us is to cope with all three.
Yeah.
And to have synergies, to have the right adjustment for the right country. And who else knows how many electric vehicles we will sell in China in 20 years, in 10 years, in 5 years' time? Sure. How does it look in Europe? If you see just Europe as an example, in Norway, BMW is selling 3 or 4 cars are already electric by today. What do you believe we sell in Romania? A couple of hands. Yeah, because it's infrastructure, it's if the customer trusts the technology,
sure.
And we need to cope with that uncertainty.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but what it shows, new players are very much important, definitely. But and this is first one clear message, our industry is not just driven by software. Software will be much more important and is already very much important for the future. But we need the hardware, the motion control, and the semiconductors. And the combination of hardware and software knowledge makes a difference. You can see that with industrialization from some of our competitors who have difficulties with that.
So let's talk a little bit about the way that you move a large company like BMW forward through this process of digital transformation. So you're a 102, 103-year-old company, enormous engineering expertise and history. How do you get the real kind of super fans, the petrol heads, internal stakeholders, how do you make people, your internal stakeholders understand that these very fast-moving startups and this sort of social trend towards sustainability, which clearly is something that's important for all of us if we're going to continue living on this planet, they're more than disruptors. They're kind of existential threats. How do you get people on board? How do you get people really excited about that vision?
Yeah, first of all, it requires clear leadership from the top. Yeah? Clear leadership from the top. Top team, our senior executive team, our top management colleagues, they need to push it together. It's not a single one-man show. That will fail.
Okay.
Yeah, but it needs a clear direction from the top. Secondly, you need to bring all the trends, what happens outside, into the company. Mm-hmm. Yeah? And I mean, who else has prognosed that we was probably having these trade war issues in the last recent weeks and months? Yeah, so all these things happen. The senior executives need to bring it into the company and to explain. Secondly, you need to have a very clear strategy, which you need to execute step by step. One of our strategies, for example, is production follows markets. So have a big footprint in the United States, a big footprint in China, a big footprint in Europe, to balance chances and risks. Secondly, we are clearly driven by what I would call technology leadership. That's the nice thing about my job and with my colleagues. We are pushing nice cars and we're pushing nice services. And you see happy and unhappy customers and you can learn from that. Okay. So the next one is, which is more changing for me as well, get BMW into a tech company and get them customer-centric. Because in the past, we were product-driven. Yeah, for example, when the US customer wanted a cup holder, some engineers thought at that time, years ago, not necessary. We, as a German engineer, that this is not necessary. And bringing the customer centricity into the company is a huge challenge. Yeah? Which means speed, which means answering fast, fulfilling it. So it's not just the technology, it's also the customer centricity, because we also have a war at the customer interface. Yeah? And people would like to have our data. Other companies. I mean, we have the customer 1 hour a day in the car. That is a very valuable time. And hopefully some of you in the room enjoy this one. Yeah?
Just drilling down
that's why it's, to summarize it, it's top leadership, it's clear strategy, it's execution, and it's changing the organization and making sure that the organization always feels there is a need to change. And there's one thing which is in the DNA of BMW. This is 1959, 1960. Okay. You see, and the BMW DNA is also about if you're not successful, there might be somebody who would like to buy you. So just looking at that, the internal challenges maybe you face. So you talked about a little bit about kind of like the change in sort of the marketplace. I'm really interested in sort of like the demographics. So we talk about young people now. They have the opportunity to work in startups, the opportunity to work in like large companies. Their priority isn't necessarily a cradle-to-grave job. Their priority maybe is flexible working. It's working on things they're passionate about, autonomy. How do you square that? How do you get talent? We're all in a war for talent these days. How do you get the talent to come to BMW? Couple of things. First of all, a policy, an HR policy, which attracts the right people. I mean, if you are young, or like a young engineer or whatever, working on autonomous driving, what else can be much more fascinating? So we get good people because it's the technology game. Yeah? What else can be also motivating, making driving safer? Yeah, we still have a lot of people who die on the roads.
Yeah.
Yeah, with autonomous driving, there's a huge chance. So you can do something for the mobility company of the future, for the best of the society. Thirdly, I mean, if you work on technology, you learn it's something. And if you look at what we do, for example, in Unterschleißheim, where we have the team with over 1,000 people now, and it will grow up to 2,000, German language is not a prerequisite. We changed that.
Okay.
Yeah, there's an international group and working on mobility of the future. And I was there a couple of times, and these people are so excited.
Sure.
Yeah, and we have more than 100 countries working for BMW in the city of Munich.
Sure.
So the product, the brand,
yeah.
the people management, the HR policy, and this is what I learned when I was in HR. Yeah? And definitely technology of the future.
Okay.
And career development. You must also give opportunities to people who don't want to take the leadership role, who would like to take the technology expert role. But so far, I can tell you, I was very proud when we were announced again being #1 employer in China. #1 employer in China. And that doesn't come for free, I can tell you. But it shows that we still attract the right talents. And my job is also to make sure that they are having the right conditions to be more successful.
So looking at the customer side of that,
yeah.
talking about the kind of the millennial customer, I have teenagers that live in a city that don't express an ambition to own a car, right?
Yeah.
Is there a generational shift going on, do you think? Or is this kind of like an attitude that people don't want car ownership any longer, that they just want access to like a larger mobility platform? Do you see a loss of appetite maybe for purchasing vehicles?
I see all directions. Yeah?
Okay.
There's people who would like to have more mobility services. Who says, in my city, I don't want to own a car.
Yeah.
That's why we have a joint venture with Daimler, which will be announced and is already public quite soon on all these mobility services for the future to create a bigger company together. Secondly, there's still people who love to drive a car. Yeah? And if you're driving on a blue sky evening to the upper mountains in Bavaria on the cross-country roads, yeah, and with an electric car or a combustion engine, and you don't enjoy that, I can't help you. I can't help you. Yeah? BMWs, and we are in the premium business. It's about emotions. We're selling emotions. We're selling cars. We are selling mobility. Yeah, it's same is valid for motorcycles. But believe me, an i4, our future electric vehicle, with less than 4 seconds from 0 to 100 kilometers, that is mobility of the future, and it's emotional fun to drive.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, I still have young people and friends of my sons who are saying, Harald, is it still clear that you still offer an M2? Because we still have young people who also love the very sporty cars.
Okay.
We have the mixture.
Okay.
Yeah, that was one of the questions I just got in China. Yeah, make sure that still BMW has M vehicles as well in the future.
Okay. Well, interesting. I think you touched on kind of what I'd like to ask you next, which is the kind of the BMW brand promise. Forgive me, Freude am Fahren. Not bad.
Very good.
Thank you so much.
Very good.
Autonomous vehicles. Drivers are going to become passengers.
Yeah.
Right. So, without consumers having their wheels on the steering wheel, that emotional part you just described, does that to some degree diminish the brand identity, the brand promise of BMW? How do you build on what you're promising consumers when they're not necessarily at the wheel any longer?
No, not at all, in my view. I mean, we showed it in 2016 with our vision car,
yeah.
The next 100 years. We call it and talk about the boost and the ease mode.
Yeah.
Ease mode is when you relax, when the car is driving autonomous, when the driving systems are working for you, and you can do your emails, you can watch a movie, you can listen, you can relax. And if, like Beijing again on Thursday, again 1.5 hours in a traffic jam, on 11 o'clock in the morning, So on 11 o'clock in the night, I had the same when we traveled to the airport. So this is the mode where you say, I would like to relax.
Okay.
I had a completely working day, so you use it, even as a BMW customer.
Yeah.
But when I talk about the upper Italian roads, yeah, or the guys who go to Lake Garda, they enjoy driving by themselves.
Right.
And we as a brand will still offer that one. And you can maybe go, if there's a traffic jam, autonomous, you can drive on your own, and you will have the best portion and best of both worlds in the future. It's different, I must be very clear, if we talk about people movers. Maybe 5 to 10 people in a big car going from A to B with no emotions. Yeah. Then you don't need a driver. But that's not my life.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about revenue and how that's going to be impacted by autonomous vehicles. So at the moment, around 90% of the value of all cars comes from hardware. But there was a recent report from Morgan Stanley said that autonomous vehicles mean that this will drop to around 40%. The other 40% is going to come from software, 20% from content or some kind of services. How can BMW adapt to this new marketplace where hardware it's diminished in value?
First message, hardware is still important in the future because the combination of hardware and software is important. Yeah, this gives you synergy and competitive advantage. Secondly, we are recruiting by today already more software engineers than mechanical engineers at BMW. That was completely different when I started working for BMW. Maybe 5% software engineers and 95% mechanical engineers.
Okay.
So we are already working a lot of software issues. And software value will be much more important in the future, but it gives us new value chains as well. You can update the car in between the life cycle, which you normally have done every 7th year. You can overnight, over the air, put a new software on, and in the morning, you have a welcome call, welcome by the car, saying, I have the new software, I can recommend a new restaurant, I can book a new theater tonight for you, there's a recommendation. All these opportunities raise for us.
Okay.
So software will be an incorporate tale of our future success and is already by today, but the value creation will be much higher in the future.
Okay.
But a BMW still must feel on the motion control like a BMW, or a Mini must drive around a corner like a go-kart. And if the software is wrong, sorry.
Okay. But we see...
So that feeling will never go away.
Okay. Well, we see other, entrants into the marketplace, software companies, companies like Tesla that are kind of effectively consider themselves to be technology companies. How do you view the competitive landscape, and who do you see as your real competitors?
The competitors are the current existing ones and the new ones, like Tesla, like Byton, but they are also vary a little bit across the worldwide regions. There are not too many who are successful all over the world, but it might change. But we take every one of them seriously, and they are clearly our competition, and we are fighting very hard against them.
Okay.
But I'm also optimistic we will be in the leading game for the edge, because it's not just software. It's not. You also need to make sure how can you produce a car 1,000 times a day. And these supply management processes and things like this one. BMW has the most flexible production system. This is a competitive advantage for the future. But who knows in Russia, as I explained, maybe the 10 could be 1,000 car. But if I have a flexible production system, I can build all three. We will build in one line a fully electric car, a plug-in hybrid, or a combustion engine. And my answer is clearly flexibility. Yeah?
Okay.
And with this in mind, with the technology leadership, I mean, with the cars coming, the Mini Electric will come onto the market this year. I mean, who will not love this car? I'm made to make sure that this person has a personal meeting with myself. And I need to convince them. Or Peter Schwarzenbauer, my colleague, will convince.
Okay, we have less than a minute remaining. So, one final question. There's been so much change, so much transformation happening in the marketplace just over the last 5 years, let alone over the last 10 years. When you look forward over the next decade, what do you think BMW is going to look like?
I mean, the next 10 years is, in my view, unpredictable. The technology change is so fast that 10 years ahead is something which might be unpredictable. I would focus what happens in the next 5 years. In the next 5 years, you will see autonomous cars. You will see pure electric vehicles on a much larger scale, and you will see customers loving their BMW and Minis, and BMW still being number one.
Okay, all right. It's a very rosy, optimistic view of the future to tie in with the theme. Harald, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you.